Good morning, folks. Welcome to Coffee with Artists. My name is Rachel Wilkins. Delighted to be back this morning after a little hiatus. We had a Monday and Friday break, but we are here this morning with a Conception alum who has been with us since 2011. Does that make you feel old?
No, I'm old.
Well, welcome to the show, Rafael. It's great to have you here.
Salud.
Salud. And what is in your cup this morning?
Lavazza coffee with a little bit of milk.
I like it. I am black coffee, Dunkin' Donuts. There's nothing classy about what's in my cup this morning.
They just opened Dunkin' Donuts too, and I have two in my neighborhood in the 2-block radius. It's forget about it. There's coffee everywhere.
Yep.
So I'll never be out of it.
That's right. So for those that don't know, Rafael Colon is a Harlem-based artist who works with skateboards. He's honoring a lot of the old masters, does some wood etching. We've had the pleasure to work together for almost a decade now, which is pretty wild. You were at one of those. In fact, I think you were in the very first original show where we were down in Tribeca.
Tribeca, yeah. I think it was the second show.
Second show.
It was in Tribeca, and I think it was. I used to be a comedy club, and it was in a basement.
Yep.
And I don't know how you got people to go in there, but it got packed.
Yeah.
And it was a basement. I remember being there, and I was like, "Oh man, what's going on?" But there was other artists there, and we all became, the camaraderie was pretty good, and most of those artists are still around, which is great, and some have changed, their style, but almost everybody's around, and I'm glad that I still see their work.
It's amazing. I see in the comments, hi Heidi. Heidi said Brick. Yep, it was Brick. That was the name of the venue. It was 22 Warren Street, and it was a restaurant upstairs, and then downstairs they had this really kooky event space that was kind of dark and New York, but really good memories. And I will say, absolute sweat equity for us at the time. We were making zero money. We were working like absolute dogs to get the show going, but it was so much fun.
It was, and you know what? And that's what got a lot of artists started, believe it or not. Because it was my second show.
Wow.
And it was my first group show.
Wow.
So it was one of those things where I got to see other people's art.
Yeah.
What was happening out in the art world, so to speak, And that's how we got to grow and experience really the public. Because when it comes down to it, you want to know what people think of your art. And it's the public. That was our first immersion into the public eye. And you got it started.
I was thinking that it was kind of right in the middle of like the Wall Street financial district. And, it was this bunch of like crazy kooky artists. Like there was like 30 artists.
Yeah.
And these like Wall Street guys like walking off the street, like, what the hell is this place? What is happening? But they stuck around and they supported and they bought art. And it felt like the start of something really special.
Yeah. And that's how you knew that there was something going on with what you were doing and accomplishing.
Yep.
And look, oh my God, a decade later.
That's so wild.
Keep going. And now international, because I know you're doing some stuff with what in France. What is that? What was that? That they go.
Yeah, we do this annual residency where we partner with Chateau Walkervaux, and we're hopefully trying to send an artist over there, once a year. So it's really cool. But your career over the last 10 years has just completely skyrocketed. I've been, I keep up with you, but I feel like you're constantly leveling up, and it's super impressive. And I'm always super proud to see you just excelling. It's amazing. What would you say to that young artist 10 years ago standing in that venue right now?
Man, don't quit. Because there were many times when, you just want to let it go. Where, even though you see things grow slowly and very slowly, because they will grow slowly, there are times when you just want to let it go. You want to quit. Like, why am I doing this? I mean, who's going to like a skateboard with Michelangelo on it? Like, who cares? But it's all about changing and evolving and trying to get people to see art differently. And really, that's where it came from. And history, really, one, you're telling a story. You're telling the history of the skateboard, which was from the 70s, right? You're
Mhm.
telling the story of whatever master you put on it. You're telling the story of wood burning and how it started. So then you're telling the story of how you created it and why. So it's a big art history lesson. And so if you look at it that way, I mean, you're basically a teacher of
Mm.
art to the public. And that's why I did it. And that's why I couldn't stop, because there's so much. I mean, Rachel, there's so much art out there. I mean, not just the famous artists. There's just people you've never even heard of, and art styles that you've never even experienced. You know, so there's never a shortage of art. I mean, you can go back all the way to the caveman and start from there, and then there's still more art before that. Even if it's a scratch from a dinosaur.
Mm.
So, I think just continuing on. I mean, just don't stop. Keep going. Keep learning. Keep evolving, because that's what's going to happen with your art. You have to evolve. And that's why it feels like it's growing so much. It's because I want to constantly evolve, and I find something new every time. Something new comes up from nowhere. People I've never heard of, art styles I've never even seen. So it's really up to you as the individual artist whether you want to grow or not. If you
Mhm.
want to stay stagnant, you're really gonna get frustrated and not go anywhere. But if you start evolving, you start growing, and start looking outside the box, things start happening. They'll happen slow. You gotta be patient, but they'll happen.
I think that's a really solid point that you mentioned perseverance and grit, because so many people just assume that these levels of success and these experiences that you are now having are luck or chance or this, or because you're maybe in a privileged position, where I've seen you go through this last decade. I've seen you hustle. And for anybody who is not aware of kind of the level of success that I'm talking about, Rafael now, and we're going to get to the details of this, but now has work at the Metropolitan Opera, at the New York City Ballet, at the Asian Society, like major institutions.
Well, I have to also thank one of my friends. She is the one who got me into these places. Her name's Lenore Grossman,
Hmm.
and she has Parkinson's, and she's this older lady who believed in my art. And she said, Rafael, I used to sell art in the 80s. There's something here. You've got something. And really, the violins for Met Opera really started last year. It was just something to add to my show, because I had over like 30 skateboards. People were gonna go crazy over the skateboards. So I wanted to break it up to give people a break, and the violins just came in. And when she saw them, she said, these belong at the Met Opera. And she walked in. I mean, cold call. She walked into the shop and said, this belongs here. And
And
they
they
were,
said yes.
who is this guy? Who are you? Let's see what he's got.
Wow.
I've been doing now opera-based violins since, I would say, September.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and you also gotta thank the people that were with you, that helped you along the way,
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't do this alone. As much as a lot of artists want to go, yeah, it's me, I did it by myself, blah blah blah. No, it's not like that. You gotta thank the people that came before you. You gotta thank the people that were with you and that are still with you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that create your base. That's your rock. Those are people you can go back and ask for advice about, what do you think. Do you think this will work? Do you think this won't work? Do you like this? Do you like this color? Those are your friends, people who you trust. Those are the people you want to go back to, and you always want to keep around. So you always have to thank the people that are that helped you along the way. That's really, when it comes down to it, you can't be selfish about that. You just gotta thank everybody. Thanks, Rachel.
Please, thank you for being involved from the beginning. Like I said, it's been a pleasure to see you just skyrocket to this level of success. I mean, it's a testament to the kind of person that you are and the kind of artist you are. You don't sit back and wait for those opportunities to come to you. You are out there. And I think one of the really important things that I see, we've worked collectively with over 8,000 artists in a decade, which is a ton of people. Now, the thing that I think I see that separates those that have some kind of measure of success is relationships. And you're talking about this relationship that you had with this person who, you appreciate that. You look back and thank that person for helping you to get there, but you had to form those relationships.
Exactly.
And I think so many folks unfortunately feel like they can just, create the art and the opportunity will come to them. But you really have to do so much more. You have to be your own best advocate. You have to market for yourself.
Absolutely.
And you have to be, kind of making those connections. Did it come naturally to you to be putting yourself out there, or was it something that you've, I'm guessing not.
No way. I was such an introvert.
Really?
I mean, although I gotta say, I have my other business, which is what I do, is fitness training. So I have a business that I've been doing that now for almost 22 years now. So I was, I get to talk to people and I get to create bonds and relationships, and so when it came to art, it was very different because now you're in the public, right? So now you're talking to more people at the same time. So you have to shorten your story, make it quick and fast enough where they'll be still sort of interested in what you have to say, right? So it didn't come easy, public speaking. It takes time. You have to be brave, because you're going to have a lot of no's than a lot of yeses. People are going to close that door faster than they'll open it. But you just have to keep talking. And the more you talk to people, the better you learn and the better you get. I mean, really, you just have to be out there, whether it's in the public, in person or in social media. Put your art out there. You have to market yourself. No one's going to do it for you. So the more you're out there, the more you're comfortable talking and being, open to talking to people, really, when it comes down to it.
So you were born in Puerto Rico, but you grew up in the Bronx and now you live in Spanish Harlem.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about those early days as a young Puerto Rican boy coming to New York, not speaking the language. Tell us about that.
Well, when I first came to New York, I was 7. So, imagine you're coming from a small little island, to a New York City, where trees are not really trees, they're buildings. And it was overwhelming, and then not knowing the language. But again, you got to thank all the people that came, that helped you along the way, all the teachers, bilingual teachers that helped you, along that way. Even other kids that actually, helped you by, doing charades with you and guessing words, and New York is New York. After a while, New York either embraces you or spits you out. I'm just glad that it embraced me, and I just never, I love the city. So I don't know what to say really when it comes to that. It's I don't know. You just have to just keep going. I'm a New Yorker. I haven't talked that way now. So yeah, that's really it, man. It's nothing I can say about New York. And living here and being here. That's who I am. Yeah.
New York is somewhere that, it's such a juxtaposition of like opposing and cultures. Some might say complementary cultures, but on one hand you've got like Lincoln Center where your work is displayed today, right? The ballet, the opera, this like just opulence and extreme wealth. And then you've got the real gritty kind of New York of the 80s with the subways with graffitied and there's a lot of hip hop influence.
Yeah.
Do you draw from both of those cultures, or is this something that influences you more?
Well, I draw more from obviously where I'm from, where I grew up, as opposed to the opulent, places like the Lincoln Center and all that, because that's who you are when it comes down to it. It's what creates, like what you said before, that grit. It creates that energy, that power that you're gonna give to whatever it is that you do. Here's a good example. I remember when I first donated skateboard art to the Queen of Sweden's foundation, right? It's called childhood.org. Remember that?
I do. It's so random.
I know, random.
I think I texted you, I sent you a message of what's up, well, how's things going? You're like, oh, I'm working with the Queen of Sweden. Just
like what? And, I got to meet, Princess Madeline, super sweet, the nicest human beings you can imagine. I mean, and here I am, this guy from the South Bronx, because I was living in the South Bronx, meeting Princess of Sweden. Then I got invited to the gala, right? I had to wear a tuxedo. I never wore a tuxedo in my life. The last uniform I wore was the Marine Corps uniform, right? And it was, once it was over, the gala was over, I had to go right back to the, to the Bronx. So it was like, I went from this really fancy place to down and dirty, hood, So who are you really? And when it comes down to it, you're both, because you have to sort of intermingle that together. And when it comes down to it, it's all about adapting. You adapt to your environment. I mean, you have a different step when you're walking in Tribeca than when you're walking in Harlem. You know what I mean? When you're in Brooklyn, you talk a little, more Brooklyn with a lower tone than when you're talking to someone in these villages. You know what I mean? So you have to adapt. And it's really adaptation. You adapt to what you do and where you are in your environment. And that's how you get to talk to people too, right? You adapt to the way they talk. So you mimic them a little bit, and then you eventually you understand what they're about.
I think for anybody who hasn't visited New York, it's such a just so many microcultures that exist within this really small little island, right? It's so, there's so many variety of different cultures, different experiences. What are some of the most interesting kind of feedback that you've had from folks?
Oh, about the art. Well, who are you? That's the first thing I get. Who are you? And how did you learn how to do this? What school did you go to? I'm self-taught. I didn't go to school. I just happened to like art. And my daughter was the one who actually said, hey, can you draw this on a pair of sneakers? And that's how, it all evolved, right? I mostly get, what school did you go to? How did you do this, without going to school? How do you know art? Stuff like that, that's kind of silly. But once you explain what you're about and your story, it changes. People change, and they no longer see you as this, who's this person who's never studied art before doing art. Then it becomes like, oh, hey, so do you know this artist? What other artists have you done? Who can you do? And then they become interested. And the more interested they become, the more interested you become in them. You just got to tell your story. It's all about your story. If your story is right, it's straight, and it's truthful, and it evokes some sort of emotion in people, people will respond positively. They're not, they won't be negative towards you. Whatever negativity you get, it's not really negative, right? It's only negative if you see it that it's negative, right? Because that comes from your own personality. So I don't see things as negative. I see them as, you're curious, right? So you're curious about me. You're curious about the art. Okay, here it is. Here's your information. Here's your data. Right? I'm going to give you a whole bunch of data, and you decide in your little brain what you think I am. And then it usually becomes pretty cool after that.
So you were in the Marines for 8 years. You served in the Marines pre 9/11.
Yeah.
Tell us about what led you to the decision to join, to enroll.
What led me to join the Marine Corps was I needed to escape New York, because as we know, New York can be overwhelming, right? So I needed a break. I figured, okay, I can do 3 things. Either I can move to Puerto Rico, work with my uncles, because I have 2 uncles that have businesses out there, or I can join the seminary and become a priest. No, I don't know if that. I don't know why I thought that. Or second, join the military, right? So I went to 42nd Street and I said, I'm going to join anybody. I don't care. So when I walked in, it was lunchtime, and Army, Navy, and Air Force were all out to lunch. The Marine was the only one eating at his desk. And his last name happened to be my last name. So I was like, wow, it must be fate. Your last name is my last name, and I'll join you. And he goes, do you know anything about the Marine Corps? I said, nope. I just want to get out of here. And he goes, what, did you commit a crime? I said, no. He said, okay. And filled out all the paperwork, and I left a month and a half later. And that was that. I just really needed to get out of New York. And boy, what an experience. I should have just went to Puerto Rico.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were deployed, but you said you were not in any kind of heavy combat.
Right. I was right at the end of Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I went to Kuwait, short period of time, but it wasn't like the Marines or the Army that after 9/11, where they went to Afghanistan and they saw some stuff that they shouldn't have seen, right? So kudos to all my Marines out there, Semper Fi. But once a Marine, always a Marine, right? So even though it was pre, I joined because I wanted to join, like I wasn't drafted or anything like that. But once you're in there, it's, you want to protect the freedom of the United States of America when it comes down to it. Then you appreciate where you come from, especially when you start traveling. When you travel to third world countries and you see that, they don't live like you do, you come back and you appreciate plumbing, you appreciate toilets, toilet paper. And so really when it comes down to it, I'm glad I joined because it taught me to be tougher than what I was already from the Bronx. It really helped me control that grit, that toughness. It helped me control anger, because what happens when you're young, you're angry, especially when you're, from tough neighborhoods. You're always, fighting mode, right? The Marine Corps taught me to control that, and having a lot of patience, okay, and having a lot of perseverance. So I then took that and put it into my art. So my art became my boot camp, and then it became my military. So the art is where that's my military service right now. Is my art service. So all that I learned in the Marine Corps, I put it into the art, and that's why it feels like I'm always evolving, because I'm always hungry. I'm always hungry to learn more. I'm not afraid. It's the fear, right? Because a lot of artists are afraid. A lot of new artists, as I was coming along this decade, as we know each other, right? You've seen a lot of artists fall. I've seen a lot of artists fall, and it's because of fear, right? They're afraid to go that next level, and they're afraid because they don't want to fail. Failure. Oh no, people don't like my stuff. Blah blah blah. There's gonna be a lot of people that are not gonna like your stuff. I mean,
that's okay.
That's it. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's gonna be more doors closing than opening, but you just gotta, just gotta pull through, keep going. So that's what I learned with the Marine Corps. We're first in to fight, so that's why I'm not afraid. If someone says, "Hey, why don't you show this to Princess of Sweden or somewhere?" Yeah, let's do it. Oh, why don't you show this in the South Bronx at school for kids? Yeah, all right, let's do it. Don't be afraid. Just do it. It's an experience. You get to talk to other people, and then you get to evolve and you get better. And really, it's when it comes down to it, what I learned from the Marine Corps is to not be afraid. Just show no fear. No fear. Like the sticker says.
You've mentioned that, you came out and you were affected, but you were not, say, one of these folks that came out with PTSD after having experienced these really challenging situations. But I noticed that it is really important to you to give back to those nonprofits that work with, former military members who are suffering from things like that. Yeah. Why is that important to you, without the obvious reason? What do you hope that art can bring to those folks?
Well, every Marine has PTSD. Let's just put it out there. Let's just put it out there, okay? So whatever Marine tells you they don't have it, they're lying. So every Marine has PTSD. Well, after you come out of boot camp, you already have it, right? It's because when you join the military, you're young, right? And you're influenced by certain things that you have to do for the military, right? And PTSD is pretty hardcore. I've seen a few people that couldn't handle it, and if they had the help, they could have made it, right? So by giving back, you're giving back to your own brothers and sisters, right? to help them along their way so that they can come out of their darkness, right? So when I started art, one of the first things that I decided to do was that I always wanted to give back to whatever cause that I believed in, right? One of them was suicide prevention. One of them was about PTSD in the military. And so um, really when it came down to it, it was just to help and whatever way I could. And so yeah, that's why I do things like that, and I still do it, right? And that has grown now, right? So now it's grown to other stuff that I believe in, and like helping kids and cancer awareness, or whatever it is that I feel strongly about, then I'll donate to that, and then it continues on. And and nowadays with what's going on with this pandemic, now we really have to get back even more, right? Because now it's not just soldiers going through PTSD, it's the world is going through PTSD. And so if there's any way that us artists can help in some way, right? In some way, shape, or form, that's what now we have to do that. Now we have to. We can't just sit back on our laurels now and go, oh, okay, I'll wait this out and then people will start coming back and buying. No, it's not gonna work that way. It's not gonna work like that at all anymore. So now we have to adapt and we have to help, because it could be any artist, right? Whether you're a musician, you're a writer, you're a dancer, you're a singer, a painter. Any art can help, right? Like I heard the other day someone say, I heard this piece of music and I instantly felt better. You know, and same thing with art. I saw this, Michelangelo, and I felt much better because it made me think of A, B, C, and D, right? And so now your brain pattern has changed, right? And so now you feel a little better, and then by seeing that ray of light, you walk towards that light, and then things change. So now we have to, whatever foundation that we have to give to now, Rachel, is the World Foundation now. Now we have to give to everybody. And that's where evolution is going to happen for all of us artists.
I want to circle back on something you said there about, and you may have said this with a grain of salt, but I think it's a really important point. You said every Marine comes out of boot camp with PTSD, right? We've been having this, we're in the middle of this just uprising, revolution right now, in response to some very visceral police brutality last week. And, one of the conversations around that issue right now is how the training of police officers takes place. And often these, it's young guys that are enrolling in the police force and often in the military, where their brains are not necessarily fully matured. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. And they're put through what sounds to me like a very harsh experience.
What happens is, again, it comes back to fear. If you're a police officer, this is what happened. Usually a lot of people who join the military also join the police force, right? So they still have, military mindset. It comes to fear, right? You're afraid of, you're afraid for your life, right? You're afraid of the public. You're afraid of yourself, and you're afraid of your environment. So you have all this fear going on, and that goes for the public too. Now they're afraid of the police because you don't know what they're gonna do. Are they gonna pull out their gun, taser? Are they gonna kill me? So when that fear is so overwhelming, they don't know how to act. They don't know how to respond. They don't know how to control that emotion. Fear is one of the strongest emotions that we have. It goes back all the way to, ancient times. It goes back to the caveman when he's running away from that saber-toothed tiger. I'm afraid I'm gonna get eaten alive, right? So it's that fear of that environment. And fear is so strong, right? It's so difficult to get out of it. I don't know. I'm not a cop. I don't know, but I've seen cops. I've been on the other side where I've been, looked at and go, hey, where are you going? But I understand both sides, right? I think they just need to figure out a way to not be afraid of each other. I mean, if the police is not afraid of the public to talk to them, and if the public is not afraid to talk to the cops, something has to happen to create that, right? So if we don't create that, this is just going to continue on and on. I mean, it's not going to end. So maybe if the police force had more, I don't know, psychiatrists or I don't know, better training as far as, controlling, their emotion, or learning how to calm another person down and calming themselves down, then, things don't escalate. But when, everybody's afraid, their emotions just go rampant and they don't know what to do. It's all about controlling. And, everybody's different. So you can teach one person how to control their emotion, but then the other person doesn't know how to do it. And then the third person doesn't, and the fourth doesn't know how to do it. So I don't know. It's tricky. I don't know. I'm not political, so I try not into all this stuff, and it's crazy.
It's hard to ignore it, especially living in New York, right? It's happening right under our noses, and I think we just need more empathy and compassion for our fellow human beings, and less fight, less fear, like you said.
Yeah, we'll try to, but unfortunately, there's a few knuckleheads out there that screwed up for the rest of us,
Right.
And you expect things to be calm. You want peaceful protests, right? But then you have the flip side, which is people looting. And then what do you expect the police to do? Okay, I'll just hang around when there's the peaceful guys and then let the looters do what they do. No, you're gonna be a cop and you're gonna stop the looters, and you got to use some sort of violence. Because if these people are using violence against you, you have to do the same. I don't know. So I think the best thing is, I don't know. Honestly, I really don't. It's maybe you could be more. You could use more empathy towards people. Sure. I mean, everybody needs to do that, but people have to learn to control, themselves. And it's also, a mob mentality. If they see a group of other people doing it, all of a sudden something clicks in their brain and go, I want to do the same thing. And
I
then
think that applies to both sides. I think the cops as well. I think if you have a bad cop who's acting inappropriately, that will translate to more bad cops.
Exactly. Or the other bad cops will start doing what that bad cop is doing. Right. But then there's the good cops, right? And then there's the good demonstrators. Right. And then now you just screwed those two people up by being bad. I mean, this one cop, well, I think it was 3 or 4, right? That killed this man. This human being, because really he's a human being that killed this human being, created this national violent protesting when it could have gone the other way. What if he would have just had the guy against the car? Put your hand. Whatever happened to that, right? Whatever happened to put your hands against the car? And they frisk you and they check you and then they put the handcuffs on you and they put you in the car. I don't know what happened to that. That just disappeared. All of a sudden now they have to throw you on the floor, put their knee on your back, and now all of a sudden cops have become more violent. There's a certain level of violence that's happened. But I got to give credit to the NYPD though, because some have learned. I mean, here we're I would say the NYPD here, they're sort of more advanced. I don't know, I want to say that, than most other states. Some of the states are a little, still a little behind. They're still a little too aggressive, right? Here, there's a lot of training for NYPD cops, and they try. They're trying, but when emotions run rampant and it's all over, and it's, it takes a really focused mind to really control themselves. Mm-hmm. So, again, it comes back to fear. When everybody's afraid,
As a creative person, in the midst of this really turmoil in the country right now, how do you, and obviously the pandemic is occurring alongside all of this, just
plus, global warming is going on. It's in the background somewhere,
How do you process that?
Yeah, we're not gonna know until that tsunami comes in and go, hey, why is that tsunami coming? Oh, global warming, duh. You know.
How do you, and you're also a father of a wonderful young woman who is in her 20s now, which I can't believe, who is going to John Jay.
Yeah.
Tell us how, as a father, all of this impacts you. What do you pass along to your daughter, and how do you navigate this unusual time?
Well, the best thing to do is to talk to your kids. Really, when it comes down to it, you got to talk to them. You got to know who their friends are, what they do, what they think, what kind of person they are. And when it comes down to it, as a parent, you got to talk to your kids, right? For example, one of the things I'm noticing is that it's a lot of young kids that are outside, looting and throwing stuff and breaking stuff. Like, where are your parents? Didn't your parents teach you? I'm sure more than half of these kids, their parents taught them, behave, be good, blah, blah, blah. But when, especially in this pandemic, parents are not working, or they have to work and they have to work late, or they have to do a different type of job that they didn't do before. They don't have time to watch their kid, and they'll come home and they don't know if their kid was out until 2 a.m., causing havoc. That's why you got to talk to your kid all the time, talk to them and see what they're about. And if they're coming home at 1 a.m. with some brand new clothes, like, where'd you get that? You know what I mean? And it's up to the parent to go, that's wrong. We're taking it back, or blah, blah, blah. You're not hanging out with those people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to us in the home to create this strong individual, right? So the best way is to talk to them. And it just so happens that my daughter's studying forensic psychology. So she's studying psychology and stuff like that. So, so she understands the psychology of why things happen, which is where the forensic comes in, right? It's the study of why things are happening. And so, when you talk a lot about that, eventually you could talk to other people in the same way. And so really when it comes down to it is talking to your kids, knowing who they are, what kind of person they are. And really, if they start acting like knuckleheads, really start, talking to them harder. Because I don't know, these young kids, they don't understand what protesting really is about. They need to start looking back at history, and understanding that peaceful protest, gets more than looting. They think that protesting equals looting or causing chaos, right? That's not how you get things done. The only way you get things to change is if you get into the government, you get into that world and start changing policies and start changing rules and start changing laws. That's how things are going to change. Sure, you could protest and maybe someone will listen, right? But if you start looting, nobody's going to listen. They're just going to try to stop you, right? So there's no change. Nothing's going to change. You can only change it from the inside. So if you change it from the inside, hopefully it fruits out. And
I mean, I agree with you on that, but I also think that the noise and the unrest and the resistance plays a big part. When you think about the Stonewall riots, like they were riots against police brutality, and that's how change came in the LGBTQ community. And I was asking myself this week, like, would that guy have been arrested? The main guy who
Floyd
murdered Floyd, would he have been arrested if there wasn't such public outcry? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think the more the outcry happened because he was killed, right? And he couldn't breathe. And when they showed that video of the cop's knee on his neck, I mean, that's violence. That's murder. I mean,
but would that cop, I guess what I'm trying to say is, would that cop have been arrested after all, had there not been this humongous outcry across the country that just demanded for some kind of justice? I think there's kind of a combination.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But I know that the situation could have gone differently.
Right.
The police officer didn't have to put him on the floor and put his knee on his neck. He could, like we were saying before, he could have put him up against the car, then put him in the car, the patrol car. And then this would never have happened. Even with video of him with his hands on the car and in the car, nothing would have happened. It was just another individual getting arrested. But it turned dark, really quick. So that's why people were protesting. They're tired because it seems like every few years this is happening, or maybe in other places it happens every year. And, it's just not documented. And that's the difference between now and then, is that we have so much video. We document everything, So there's really no hiding for the police to do brutality anymore, because now everybody's going to record it. So I don't know.
So let's talk a little bit about the work. So, you're somebody who I feel you're almost, it's like an escapism for you. Like you've got all this stuff going on around you, but you paint and honor these, masters from over the centuries. What was the decision that made you go down that path?
Path into doing the masters?
Yeah, not focusing maybe on kind of your own personal experiences, but thinking of ways that you can extend the message of these, masters and also some relatively unknown creatives from the past.
Yeah, it's because I wasn't trained in a school, right? So what am I gonna do? How am I going to get this art to evolve? How am I going to evolve as an artist? So I figured, well, I might as well learn from the masters. Everybody after them learned from them. So I think that's the way to go. So let me start from the beginning and then work my way up. I'm still in the Renaissance. I still haven't gotten out yet, right? I'm still evolving in that world, right? So I figured, okay, let me start with the main guys. Let me go with Michelangelo, Rafael, Leonardo. Then let me get into, Giacometti, and then let me get into, Caravaggio, and then kind of grow and learn about light, learn about perspective, stuff I never even thought about. I just figured, hey, I'm just drawing some really cool stuff. But I didn't think about perspective, light, color theory, styles of brushing, which I don't use a brush, which is another thing. Okay, so how that happened. So the masters all use brushes, right? So I figured, okay, everybody uses a brush. I got to be different. I got to make things harder for myself, right? Even harder than a brush. What am I going to do? So I saw this kid, and this is where it comes back to my neighborhood, right? He was doing graffiti on a wall with a marker, and it smelled like, the marker smelled. And I went up to the kid, and he thought I was a cop. I said, look, I'm not a cop. I'm an artist, right? What's that marker you're using? And it was this deco color marker. It's an oil paint marker. So it's really oil paint, except not as thick as regular oil paint, where you have to also mix it with oil and all that, with linseed oil. And I said, man, that is so cool. What is that? And this kid had this knowledge about markers that I mean, whatever. He was like, man, you can get it here, blah, 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 blah. You can do this, you can do that. And then that idea just spawned, I'm going to use, oil and acrylic markers and see how that works, right? So that forced me to be more hands-on with the art. So if I wanted to blend, I have to blend with my fingers, because I don't have a brush now. I have my fingers too, and I have to be fast, because these oil markers, they dry super fast. I'm talking about seconds. So you have to already know what you have to do in paint before you do it. So I have to be fast. That's why it seems like I'm always knocking out art so quickly. No, it's just that I'm forced to be fast, and so so I went back. So when I started doing masters and Japanese art, really, because it went first to Japanese art, right? And then it went to the masters. So the Japanese art, they taught me sort of linear, how to be more controlled, everything's woodblock print, levels of color. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And that's where I started using those color markers, those oil and acrylic markers. And it just got better, and it just got really good. And as far as the masters, after the Asian art, I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, how am I going to evolve skateboard art so people can still like skateboard art and get art history on top of it, right? I went to Metropolitan Museum of Art, our home away from home for every artist in New York City, because, it is what it is. And I overheard this woman say, most of these masters are on wood panels. I said, wait a minute, a skateboard is a wood panel. That's it. Bing, bing, bing. Lights went off, and I started looking at every master. And then my first master was Michelangelo, and I was like, that's it. I'm just gonna do masters on skateboards. How the heck am I gonna do it? I gotta immerse myself in the world of the masters. And I was glad that I had already kind of started, because I had to learn perspective and all that stuff from them, and light. And that's how it started. Really, it was because I overheard a tour guide at the Metropolitan Museum of Art talk about a wood panel, and I was like, oh, that's the idea. And then it just evolved from there. And then I got into other people that I started to like Picasso, Degas, and then I started getting into, what artist is so difficult that maybe I can create that no one's ever done before on a skateboard. But technically, no one's ever done masterpieces on a skateboard, period.
Right.
So I'm one of the first ones to do it. So, and then actually paint on it, and then actually wood burn on it. So the wood burning, right? Because I know we're gonna get to that question, was a mistake, right? I was actually drawing on a skateboard, and my skateboard was touching one of the hot lamps that I have, and it created sort of a straight line, and it was so straight. I was like, this is too straight. I wonder if there's some sort of straight line wood burning. And all of a sudden, like, it's called pyrography, right? That's what the wood burning style is. And it's like hobbyists do a lot of, you put it on little wooden boxes and people's names and stuff like that. But then when I looked up pyrography, people do crazy art on wood burning. So I was like, oh my God, this is it. I'm going to do this too. So that was another level that I can do to make things even more difficult for myself, right? And so then my first wood burning was of a lion, and I put it in a group show. And I think it was you. I think it was conception. It was on a skateboard. And
I think I remember this. Is the guy who was blind?
Yes, he was visually impaired.
Right.
I don't know if he was completely blind, but I think he was with somebody. But he touched the skateboard and he figured out what it was.
Wow.
And I said, mind blown, right? That's it. I will create wood burning on every skateboard, so that if a person who's visually impaired comes in, they can touch it and in their mind can kind of figure out what it is. And then with you explaining, they can really figure it out. I mean, that's the next level, right?
It's amazing.
It's like now there's no sight, but there is sight. You know what I mean? So that's all the levels. I just started making things harder and harder and harder for myself. And then I was like, okay, how am I gonna make it even harder? Oh, let's do triptychs. Let's do diptychs. And then that's where the big guys started coming in, like Norman Rockwell. Can I do a Norman Rockwell? I don't know. Let's see. And I do it. You just gotta immerse yourself into those masters, into those artists. But it's really the masters, like Michelangelo and Leonardo and Rafael. I mean, if I wouldn't have had that base, because they're my base, I always go back to them. If I didn't have that base, I don't know. I don't think I would be as evolved as I'm becoming. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, that's who you learn from, right? You learn from their theories and their what they did before, and then you get better.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see other people doing other stuff, and then you incorporate it into your own style. So yeah, my style is, I don't know, no style. It's just I just do what I think I like and what I think would look cool.
But you make it your own. I know you say that you feel sometimes that you're lending from these other artists and you're just replicating, but it's not. It's very much your own style and interpretation.
The way it's done, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an exact replica. It's not, hyper realism. It's your interpretation of them, and I think we do lend from artists from various generations as we create our own work. So tell us about the shift from skateboards to violins.
Okay, so violins, so last year I had the big masterpieces show, right? I had over 30 plus skateboards. It was so overwhelming. And it was at the small gallery in the East Village called Art on A, which is no longer there, which was my home away from home. I was there for 4 years. And it's a small place. It was small. she had all these 30 skateboards, and it was so overwhelming. So I knew that if people come in, they're like, oh, skateboards. Oh, even though there's a lot of masters and different styles, I wanted to break it up. So I didn't know what to do. So I wanted to do a guitar. Hey, let me see if I can do a guitar. It's wood, right? It's too big. I'm not going to have enough time. And then I saw some program and someone was playing a violin. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I ordered it online. And it came like in a week. And I was like, okay, let's see what I can do. So I had to sand it down and get upgraded. I think you can see one like right there,
Yep.
right? So that's what they look like, when I get them. They're all glossed up and stuff like that. So I have to sand it down. And so I did the same style that I do on a skateboard on the violin,
Wow.
except that a violin is a lot thinner. And then, I don't know, then I had to learn about a violin. I didn't know anything. I don't know anything about even classical music. I'm like, I don't care. But then my friend Lenore Grossman, who's like my guru, my Wikipedia of art, I said, hey, I'm doing these violins. And she goes, oh my God, do you know who Tchaikovsky is? Do you know who Isaac Stern is? I'm like, no. Like, here, learn, listen. And so I started listening. And as I was making the violins, I was listening to each one that I was doing, and that style, and that was my style now. From their music, my style came out into the violin, and I created four violins for my show. Thought, yeah, it'd be cool. I'm kind of classical now. I'm kind of cool. Right. Then they sold. They were the first things that sold. 4 violins sold. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? The curator of the gallery was like, you got another niche, man. Something's up. Again, my friend Lenore Grossman, she goes, there's something here. I'm going to take photos of these, and I'm going to take it to the Met Opera because that's where they belong. And she called it, man. She just walked in and just showed them photos, and they were like, who is this guy? Who are you? And what is this?
Wow.
And they were so interested that like 2 months later, they called us in, and they asked if I could create 4 violins opera based. I created 4 violins that were based on 4 operas that they were going to do. And when we took the violins, they said, okay, we'll take all 4 of them. And then they premiered in September of last year, and they just started selling. And they were like, who are you? Can you do this one? Yeah, I think so. Now that's the thing with the Met Opera. Now it's shifted from me creating masters, right? Which is me copying someone else, to now me having to do my own original stuff based on something. So I have to draw my own stuff based on something else.
Wow.
That's the challenge now. Now I'm challenged because now I have to be a creative more as opposed to a copyist, which is what I consider myself, a copy, right? So now learning from the masters helped me so much, I gotta tell you. And so the violins really evolved from a need. I needed something different. I needed a different something to break something up, and they just took off. And now I had to learn about violins. I had to learn, how they're made, spruce, ebony, and how they're thin on the top, not so thin on the bottom, the bass, how you play it. I was even gonna go to Italy. I was gonna go to Cremona to go check it out. Wow. The factory, how they make it, because you have to immerse yourself on how they make this stuff, right? Because next to a skateboard's only been around for decades, right? Since the 1970s, right? So you have a base history of the skateboard that you can tell. A violin has been around for centuries, right? Decades. So you have this base of history behind the violin, which makes it even more robust, right? And so now you're telling a story of the violin, and you're telling the story of music, and you're telling the story visually, all in one. Wow. And we talk about evolving when you're not clashing, but you're melding different arts together. Man, I mean, just the evolution alone just should get you excited about it,
So how does it feel now to have your work in this major institution that people could only dream of partnering with? It's got to feel validating, surely.
No, I'm not validated yet because I'm still growing. I'm still a baby, right? It's not like I've been doing art for 40 years and I'm like this. I've been doing art really seriously a decade, right? I'm still young. I'm still learning. I'm still evolving. I'm not validated yet. I don't consider myself good yet, right? I'm not good yet. I'm not there. It's like, okay, like the great master Hokusai, right? The guy who made the Great Wave. Mm-hmm. And he goes, someone asked him, he made a turtle and he was like 80. And some guy goes, oh, that turtle, it's not that great. And he goes, yeah, but it took me 80 years to create this turtle. So he still felt like he wasn't enough evolved yet. So that's what I feel like. I'm just growing, partnering with a big corporation like really a group of artists that see you as an artist. It's more like they're welcoming you, right? Like, hey, we see something in you. Yeah, we like it. Keep going. And to me, it's sort of like, stoking the fire. We're like, all right, I'll do more. I'll create more. And you just got to get excited about it. And the validation I'm sure is going to come at some point. Maybe I hope sooner than later. I hope I'm not like 90 and I'm like validated. But I think you can't think that way, right? You can't think, oh, I made it. No, you never make it, right? Because in your own mind, you have to keep evolving. Because if you've made it in your mind, that's it. You're done. It's over. Like you might as well just pack it in. You're done because you think you've done it all. No way, man. I'm just like I'm growing. I'm an amoeba. Like I'm a cell, just growing. I haven't even come out of the ocean yet. So, it's evolution, and I'm glad they love the work, and I'll try to evolve it as best I can. Same thing with Asia Society. I mean, the Asian art is just evolving also because now I'm also getting ideas from ceramics, right? Like 16th century, 17th century, 18th century Asian art, ceramics, and you incorporate that with the other Asian art, and now you're creating this other spectrum of Asian art melded together. You know what I mean?
And you have a cultural connection to Asian art. Your grandparents or your
grandfather,
right?
We believe he was from China, and he stowed away on some ship somewhere and ended up in Puerto Rico. So that's the story. Okay, all right, cool. I'll take it. But it's Chinese, right? Mm. But you intermingle all cultures together, right? All Asian art, right? It's still cool no matter what, right? Japanese art, Chinese art, whatever. You make it cohesive, right? You make it so that it makes sense. And if it makes sense in the drawing or in the painting, people are gonna like it. So really, that's what we do as artists, right? We intermingle things together to make it look cool as best as it can when it comes down to it. So yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm glad they like the stuff. I'm really happy.
So I think that kind of my takeaway there is as artists, it's not necessarily the destination; it's about the journey towards it. So
absolutely, because the journey, you're gonna have lots of obstacles, and it's up to you how you're gonna get through. But you can get through those obstacles because either you can go over it, you can go around it, you can go under it, you can break right through it. It's up to you how you want to do it. And if you can't figure out those ways, there's also angles. You can go at a 30-degree angle, 65-degree angle.
That's like a true Marine. That's like a true Marine. All right, so we are going to take some questions. So if you have a question for Rafael, do jump into the comments. I want to know what's next for you because you like you said, you're always evolving. What are you hoping to do in the next couple of years?
Well, I also do jean jackets, right? So Maybe do a little bit more fabric stuff, more jean jackets. See if I can evolve working with paints that deal with fabric. Maybe more musical instruments like a guitar, which I already tested on a guitar and it came out pretty good. A cello, which I don't know if you can. Let me see.
You have one there?
Can't really see the cello, but I've got a cello. Hold on.
Oh wow, wow! Oh, beautiful.
I'm doing a Michelangelo on this cello, and it's stuff like that where you want to evolve, right? You want to take it to that next level and see what happens. I don't know. Something else could come along. I don't know. Maybe you'll see me painting a car.
It wouldn't surprise me. All right, one question here from Beju. Hey, Beju, does your work on the violin alter the sound or does it remain playable? Great question.
Yes, it does, actually. I didn't know that because I didn't know anything about violins. So last year, a violinist came into my show and started plucking all of the violins. And so I went up to him and I go, yo, man, what are you doing? You're plucking my violins.
Don't touch the art.
Who are you? And he goes, oh, I play violin. And yeah, the sound is different on all these violins. And he goes, yeah, put the bridge on. And I didn't know what a bridge was. I just knew there was this little white thing there. And I just put it in the box, right? So he put the bridge on and he kept plucking. And he goes, you see, because you wood burned and you painted it, it changes the sound of every violin. So now every violin is unique, even more than it was already with your painting and your wood burning. So now each violin is so unique that you have to tweak each violin differently to play it. And I was like, oh my God, I just learned something. And then I did a group show in Tribeca, and I just took one. And this one lady who was also a violinist walked in and started plucking, and I figured out what she was doing. And then she said, yeah, the pitch is different. The sound is different. So yeah. So yes. So your answer to your question is yes.
That's amazing. That's so fun. Such a cool concept. And I love how you just immerse yourself in everything about the culture and everything about the instruments. Like you really go above and beyond to be just
so interesting. When it comes down to it, it's history, right? If you're a person that likes history, any kind of history, immersing yourself in what that piece is. I mean, it's just more things you could tell people, like, oh, this, did you know that the violin started blah, 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 and, it's made out of this wood that was in Italy and blah, blah, blah. If you have this story of how it's created, you respect the piece more, right? I got to tell you, I didn't know anything about violins or really classical music last year, but I have such a huge respect to all those artists that play music, that are, whether it's guitar or violin or cello, whatever it is that you play, they are true artists because it's the same thing. You have to really, crank it. You have to learn music. You have to learn music notes and stuff like that, and take that visual music note and create a sound, something. I mean, artists. I mean, mic drop, right? Mic drop. Okay, you got it. I'm learning, so you learn, and then you respect the music itself, right? And you're like, oh wow, that's how that violin sounds. Yeah, it's so cool. It's cool.
Awesome.
You learn.
Listen, thank you for sitting down with me this morning. Let's do this again in another decade and reflect. Another decade.
Sooner than that, please.
We'll do it in a couple of years. Let everybody know where they can learn more about you. What's your web address?
www.rafaelcolon.org, or you can follow me on Instagram. Really, follow me on Instagram because that's where you'll see me posting all the awesome, as I create it type of photos.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, folks. Go check out Rafael's website. Always a pleasure to see you, and I love keeping up with your success. Original Conception alum. That is our show this morning. We are going to be back tonight, actually, at 7 p.m. We have a great guest who's in Australia, so we're doing a nighttime episode. 7 p.m., Tracy Vergudo is joining us to talk all things art. And be back, like I said, 7 tonight, and also back again tomorrow morning at 11. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. If you feel inclined, please do go ahead and leave us a review. And Rafael, we will see you soon.
Yes, you will. Thanks, Rachel.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.